Hey guys, welcome back to my Consciously Cultured YouTube channel. My name is Caitlin and my aim is to get you fermenting at home. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a Jerusalem artichoke and leek sauerkraut. We have some really beautiful in-season vegetables, including Jerusalem artichoke that I've peeled here, some really lovely leeks. And then also some January King cabbage. I've just cored it and removed the outer leaves of that. And I thought we'd flavour that today with some really nice English herbs. So we've got thyme, rosemary here. And then of course we need our unrefined salt. So I use Cornish sea salt just because it's local to me. So all you're going to need is a chopping board that I have here, a bowl, a jar that can fit a 500ml capacity jar. Basically, I know that I can fit about 400 to 450 grams of vegetables in here with enough headspace for the brine to rise up. So you'll need a 500ml capacity jar, and then we'll be making, like I say, about 400 to 450 grams of sauerkraut. You obviously need a knife as well, teaspoon to measure out your salt and herbs, and then that is it. So the amounts are going to be about 200 grams of cabbage, 100 grams of peeled and washed Jerusalem artichoke, and then 100 grams of leeks. And you can process them however you like, really. I like to kind of roughly julienne my Jerusalem artichokes, shred my leeks, and then just kind of roughly shred my cabbage here. Now, if you don't have any of the January King variety of cabbage, you can use any kind of white cabbage for this. So whether that is sweetheart cabbage or whether that be just the hard white variety, that's absolutely fine. Obviously the January King has quite loose leaves, as you can see here, so it will give like a softer textured sauerkraut. And if you use more of like the white cabbage, it'll be a little bit crunchier in texture, but that's absolutely fine. So I've just really roughly chopped my cabbage there. I'm going to add that in, and then I'm going to kind of roughly chop my leeks. Leeks are really great, really good for the gut. They're kind of food for your existing gut microbes, and it adds just really nice flavour to your sauerkraut as well. So we're going to add those in there. So I do like to use the tops of the leeks. So often people will kind of cut their leeks, cut all this dark green off. But these are really packed with flavour, and that fermentation process does break them down so that they're not really tough. But don't throw them away, they are really tasty to add to things. Obviously, as I always say, you want to be getting vegetables that haven't been sprayed if possible. It just means that they're coming from a healthier soil. A healthier soil means more microbes in your ferment, which is obviously going to be better for us health-wise. But if you can't get organic veg, you know, just give your veg a good wash. We have many microbes on our hands, on our work surfaces. That'll be enough to kind of inoculate the ferment we're making, so don't panic too much about that. So that is all the leek added in there. The smell's amazing already. Now I've peeled and washed my artichoke, but now I'm just going to chop these. I was going to julienne them, but for demo purposes we will just finely shred these. So I ended up cutting my Jerusalem artichoke into little circles there, Don't be afraid of cutting your veg into different textures. You know, you can have variations in texture in the sauerkraut, and I actually find it quite nice. So I'm now going to add my thyme and rosemary to this. So I'm going to do about half a teaspoon of each, because remember this is only about 400 grams, so a little bit goes a really long way. So that is the thyme and a little bit of rosemary. You can use fresh herbs if you like as well, so you will need to use more fresh herbs compared to dried because they're a little bit less intense. So because I have 400 grams of veggies here, I like to do 2% salt per weight of vegetables. So that is going to be 8 grams. So I'm just going to make sure I've got the exact measurements there. There we go, so that's 8 grams in there now, and now it is time to mix. So I lightly mix to incorporate all the flavours through the cabbage. And then you want to get in there and really squeeze. Don't be afraid of damaging the cabbage, you're not going to. We just want to encourage the salt to be drawn out of the leaves, of the leeks and the cabbages, so really do get your hands in there. Obviously you are handling salt, so you can use gloves if you need. It really smells amazing. So you can see the cabbage is starting to have a nice shine to it. We want to get it to the point where we give it a squeeze and it starts dripping with liquid. It's not quite there yet. So my cabbage is now ready to pack into my jar. I've done the squeeze test and it started dripping with liquid. So obviously what the salt has done is it's initially killed off anything unwanted, and now what we want to do is create an anaerobic environment, and that is where we pack it tightly into our fermentation vessel to prevent any oxygen getting to our veggies. Now a really good tip is to just pop a small handful at a time and press down. Handful in and then press down again. It just allows you to prevent any air gaps getting into your ferment. So, pickle packer, it's a great investment. You could even just saw in half a rolling pin, just something that's got a nice solid end. It just allows you to put some weight behind pressing. And you can't always fit your hand in the jar. I've got quite small hands, so they fit in nicely, but yeah, pickle packers are a great investment. Right, so we've got a handful in there. I'm going to stand up for this. Really press down. You can see already there, the juice is starting to rise up, and that is exactly what we want. So we can see now that that cabbage is all nicely in our jar with enough headroom that brine can rise up during fermentation without it necessarily spilling over. What I'm going to do now is add a leaf and the core of my cabbage that I cut out before I started processing. So if you've seen my other videos, I like to pre-soak these in a little bit of salt water before I start processing my cabbage, and then I take it out once it's all packed and then pop it on the top of my ferment. So this leaf just prevents any straggly bits of cabbage rising above the brine, and then we've got the core of the cabbage which sits just above the edge of the jar, so that when I get my lid it presses down and creates a nice layer of brine. Kind of see across the top there. because we want that brine to act as a layer of protection across the top of the ferment. And as your jar starts to ferment, that brine will rise up. Sometimes it will spill over, so I do like to sit my jar on a plate just in case, but there is sufficient headroom there that it shouldn't spill over too much. This is going to sit on my kitchen counter now for 2 to 3 weeks at room temperature, out of direct sunlight. After 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to have a little taste. If I like the flavour, it'll go in the fridge. Popping your ferment in the fridge just slows down fermentation so that it maintains its flavour for longer. With live unpasteurised fermented foods, you're never going to stop fermentation, but it will, putting it in the fridge at a lower temperature just slows those microbes down. This will last for months in the fridge. You'll probably eat it before it goes off. You'll be able to tell if it's off. You want to keep an eye out for visible signs of mould, any discoloration, any funky smells that don't smell good, and go for test the taste of it as well. You can taste this after a week. Depending on the temperature of your kitchen, it might be a little warmer, so it might ferment quicker. So you can open this up after a week, have a taste. If you're happy with the flavour, you can refrigerate it at that point. If you want to leave it longer, just repackage it back up and leave it at room temperature again. During the 2 to 3 weeks that this is fermenting, you do need to do something called burping your jar, and that is simply undoing the lid for a millisecond and closing it back up. During the fermentation process, the microbes produce CO2, so it can build up and it can force the brine out of your jar. So it's really good practice just to quickly undo the lid and close it back up. Oftentimes I'll pop a tea towel over the top whilst I do that, just to prevent any bits of the sauerkraut juice spurting out. Over the 2 to 3 weeks, you will hear little fizzing sounds, little kind of fermenting sounds. Don't panic, this is a great sign that your ferment is fermenting away, and you'll see little bubbles shooting up. I always get quite excited when the jar starts to bubble and fizz. And that is how you make a seasonal Jerusalem artichoke and leek sauerkraut. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. I'd love to hear if you've given this ferment a go and how you got on with it. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in, and happy fermenting. Bye.